Mark Steyn, thanks for joining us. Look, the Liberal left seem to say that democracy is in ruins when they're out of office and that their country is in ruins when they're out of office. But when the Democrats win, suddenly democracy's fine and they're all patriotic again.
Yeah, it's interesting. For 4 years, a clear, decisive victory by President Trump was presented as the machinations of the Russians and Vladimir Putin, but a close, tight, dubious election. If you question that, you're questioning the entire integrity of the democratic process, and there's no place for that in our society. They're always brilliant at turning on a dime, the left, because they basically operate on the principle that it's different when they do it. So they're cock-a-hoop right now.
You talk about a dubious election result. Is democracy in peril with Donald Trump taking these legal challenges, or is he just exercising his right, in fact, perhaps his obligation?
Well, obligation, I think, is right on behalf of over 70 million Americans who voted for him. America has the least clean elections in the Western world, and it would certainly shock any Australian, any Canadian, any Frenchman, any Dane, any Swede what goes on in American elections. And in this case, a handful of hardcore Democrat cities that have run corrupt elections, in some cases since the end of the Civil War. I mean, we're going back 150 years. Have managed to decide the result of the election for the rest of the country. And there are real questions and real grievances about what went on. The famous boxing champion, Joe Frazier, voted in Pennsylvania, even though he's been dead for 5 years. June Aiken, who was a beautician in the beauty salon at Field's department store in Jackson, Michigan for many years. She did her civic duty and she voted in the election even though she died last year. In Michigan, I believe it's getting close to 1,500 centenarians managed to cast votes in this election. Some of them are super centenarians, 118 years old, 120 years old, but God bless them, they still did their duty and requested absentee ballots because they've been seriously absentee. They've been singing with the Celestial Choir for the last decade or so. Nevertheless, all those 118, 120-year-old, you know, it's remarkable to me, Michigan, every 4th November, certainly this time, turns out to have the highest life expectancy on the planet. And then all these super centenarians, 118, 120, they all go quiet until they're needed in 4 years' time.
There's some extraordinary stuff there, and there's no doubt there's incidents of malpractice and these sorts of strange episodes with deceased people casting ballots and the like. But the point is whether or not there was enough wide-scale corruption to question the election result. Is that the case, or is Donald Trump trying it on? And perhaps it's more the case of these extraordinary mail-in ballot rules. The rules changed because of the coronavirus, and the Democrats and their organisational friends trying to exploit that and working the system on the ground perhaps a lot better than the Republicans.
Oh, yes, I think there's no doubt they're much better than that. Look, I understand this has been a weird year with the coronavirus and everything. The first election to be held in North America since the COVID broke was a couple of weeks ago in the Canadian province of New Brunswick. The polls closed at 8 p.m. and the result was announced at 8:55 p.m. So even with the COVID, they were able to conduct a normal election. We have situations now, which again is unique in the developed world, where they cannot tell you the result of the election 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days after the polls closed. That's not an accident. The chaos is a choice because it provides cover for all kinds of murky goings-on, including these deliveries, mysterious deliveries of vast boxes of uncounted votes that turn up at 3:45 in the morning. Again, if you're familiar with elections elsewhere, it's extraordinary what happened on election night round about whatever it was, 10:47 p.m., where suddenly the states that are closely contested all decide that the poll workers are going home for the night and they'll resume at some time in the morning. I've never seen that in any country where I've chanced to be spending an election. The parties spent $14 billion on the election. That would be a lot of money almost anywhere on the planet, and yet, unfortunately, that $14 billion isn't enough to pay for someone to do the night shift at the count in Philadelphia and in Detroit and in Milwaukee and other places. I regard the two-year presidential election campaign is largely a complete waste of time anyway, but it's particularly a waste of time if you're going to have a two-year election campaign and then basically the result is decided by which boxes show up between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. On the day after the election.
It is clearly below par. It is clearly unsatisfactory. But what should Donald Trump do in these situations? What should he do for the good of his party and the good of the country?
Well, I think the Democrats have got plans for him. You know, it's not enough to chase him from office. They would actually like to get him in jail, or at least spend the next 2 decades of his life trying to put him in jail. So he's really got nothing to lose. He's been a consequential president. And they want to teach the lesson, not just for populists in the United States, but populists throughout the West, that this is over. You've had your fun. It's not going to happen again. So they're determined to drive a stake through the vampire. And that being the case, Donald Trump has got nothing to gain by being just a graceful loser. The Republicans are good at that. Bob Dole, Mitt Romney, John McCain, they all make terrific losers. They give terrific concession speeches. Donald Trump was elected in part because he punches back. And in that sense, he's got nothing to lose. He should keep punching back. He should exhaust his legal appeals. Even if people think it's bad form, don't worry about it, because if you take this guy out, the next guy is sure to be just your conventional Republican loser, a Jeb Bush type, a John Kasich type, and he'll be giving a magnificent concession speech in 2024. But that is not who Donald Trump is, and if he's going to go down, there's no point going down like a Mitt Romney or a Bob Dole.
There's a lot of sense in that from Mark Steyn, but honestly, this talk about presidents going to jail, it is shocking. And I think the Democrats have played a shocking game over the past 4 years with their attacks and their attempts to delegitimise and impeach Donald Trump. But also Donald Trump has led a lot of chants saying lock her up when it came to Hillary Clinton and the like. So it's ugly on both sides there, and we shouldn't have it.